My page proofs came back, and I did do several things. I don't know whether I told you about this, but I think it should be in our record here. I had felt very much that it must be explicable that humanity does have such vanity that is always knowing, so show off what something's happened. I knew that all the time. Everybody knows. Anybody go to the moon? That's very easy. And we've been doing that all the time. Anyway, it's just a matter of my taking a little trouble. I know how to do that all the time. There is that kind of attitude of humanity, and I wanted to document clearly, if I could, that human beings had this vanity. I'm going to make a momentary detour on my vanity, and I'll come back to it, and because I want to consider how and why nature would endow humans with this vanity. These are organisms. Anyway, she found then they were so ignorant that they made so many mistakes. She also then had to give them kind of a sheath of pride. There is a vanity it's given human beings, so they be not too mortified by all their errors, really knowing how absolutely ignorant they are. So she made human beings. They know a whole lot. Now I'll come back then to when my first book was. I told you about Einstein the other day, about the same book, and when the page proofs came to me for it, see, Einstein said okay, and then it really was 2 years before it actually finally is getting out. The books take some time. There are many things to go wrong. And the author has, you can make changes, but it costs you quite a lot of money. And I made quite a major change. I had the page proofs, they're just ready to go, and I put up in the front of the book a set of, I did two things. I took out the game of life. I decided, when I saw that page proof, that people, I was talking about industrialization, many things like that, I thought it would seem too mystical, far out. It was a whole lot of fun, the game of life, because I then got into male and female letters, and all around was the females, and began to get things together. I did get into that symbolism you talked about, Jack. It's fascinating how much really sort of fundamental symbolism was in the letters and the communication tools. So I took that out, and it said in the text that if you wanted the text of the game of life, it was printed independently. I kept my page proofs, and Ed Strasberg a year ago had ran offset of it called The Game of Life, and so you can get it if you'd like to read it. At any rate, I also put up in the front of the book a set of prognostications, because I knew that if any critics looked at my book, they'd look up at the front and say, a set of prognostications, that's exactly what they'd pick on. That's good and simple. So I had 22 prognostications, and sure enough, there were 100 book reviews of it. And they all went up and took those prognostications. Some of them went into the book much deeper, but even if they went in the book deeper, they always talked about the prognostications. Frank Lloyd Wright wrote a beautiful piece for the old Saturday Review in those days, and he reviewed each one of the points, and he was very, very friendly to me about it. But it's quite. We have a copy of that. Don't we? Send me over the office. Now, I put in 22 prognostications, and the 21 of them were very carefully chosen. The 22nd, I simply said no change with the way of man with a maid and vice versa. But then the other 21, I very carefully, at that time when I was the Science and Technology editor at Fortune, I just arrived there, and I picked everything I wrote. I was confident, and they'd never been in print ever. I got researchers at Fortune to check with me. Nobody could find any suggestion that's been being said. So they're absolute novelties. And so, sure enough, all the reviewers came at them. I kept and bound. I have in the chronophile. You'll find the binding. If you look for that, the 100 reviews are there in the Dymaxion chronophile, and they all pick on these reviews, on these prognostications. When I came to the paperback of it, that was the book of 1938. When I came to the paperback of this in the 60s, paperbacks, they'd like to have, there are so many folios, there's a more economical way of publishing. They don't like to get odd numbers of the signatures, so that they asked me if I could take out some pages. So what I took out was the prognostication. Every one of them was so absolute, every one had happened, and if you said that's the prognostication, and that I made that year, nobody would believe it at all. They said, it was always so. They seemed trite and stupid, and yet I have the documentation of that 100 in that volume. The experts, because he wasn't just a general set of critics. I was in the power industry, so the magazine Power, the electrical generator, they made the main editorial, the first editorial on it. So it was very prominently reviewed, and it was run up for the Book of the Month Club. Okay, I wanted to get end with you then this concept of humanity being a problem to cope with due to this quick way in which he says, I knew this was going to happen. In Fortune magazine, I wrote another poem, and you'll find this other poem in it's with No More Second on God. And they ran a set of paintings by Sheila and this poem, where again I said, when the Almighty bemused himself with shoot the works and started valving the hot valve and the cold valve and so forth. I've gone into quite a number of times that I have gone in the idea of absolutely scrapping the universe and then putting it together again as a test of its own integrity. But I can't help but feel, as I said to you the other day, when we get to taking the relative abundance of the chemical elements in the different biological organisms, and we find that the amoeba just doesn't have enough chemical elements to make the other biological organisms. That not until we get the human being has the largest number of chemical elements of any of the living species, and the relative abundance of those chemical